Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today we're having this chat with Kunal. I'll introduce himself. He'll introduce himself in a little bit. So this conversation will be in English. YouTube allows to have an automated subtitle if anyone wants to keep up with this conversation and rather prefer to read in Spanish than to have in English. So thank you very much for being here, Kunal. Kunal is the Chief Innovation Officer of a big transportation company called Zaro Transportation. And today we're going to be talking about something extremely interesting that we have been talking about in the past days and weeks. One of our speakers before was talking about this, but basically the future of supply chain and how digital technologies will help us literally to bounce back into, I don't know if it's gonna be a new normal, the same normal or something, but I'm sure it's gonna be interesting.
Thanks, Federico, so much. So I'm very grateful to be, just to introduce myself. I work with Zaro Transportation, and we're actually based out of Laredo, Texas, and we offer door-to-door cross-border services from Mexico into the U.S. and from the U.S. into Mexico. And we've been in business for about 14 years, and really the cornerstone of our operations. Well, there's really two pillars, actually. I would say one is really service to our drivers and our customers, and the second is a focus on technology. And definitely a very interesting question, because I really personally don't think that it's ever going to be the same after this change of events or crisis or whatever you'd like to call this. There's so many different words and perceptions, but
yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, we're facing something we have never faced before, and so everyone's kind of making it up as we go. For everyone watching, you do have on your right side of your screen a live chat. We can interact. You can post the questions either in Spanish or English, and I will gladly translate and ask those questions to Kunal here. Kunal, you were born in San Francisco, correct me if I'm right?
Oh, or you at least actually.
In Santa Barbara. Well, yeah, it's basically the same. And you worked in different companies there. Some of them tech companies, some of them in other niches. You founded a couple companies. Now you're the Chief Innovation Officer of a big transportation company. So how is this background, this tech savvy background, is helping you currently in a, well, not as disruptive industry as transportation?
Well, here's the interesting thing, is that really, at the end of the day, transportation is something that directly impacts all of us as humans, right? If we didn't have transportation, we wouldn't have all of the things we need to actually live and survive in the way we do. And so the work that we do together directly has an impact on the actual physical lives of quite a few. And so I guess kind of going back to my background, I worked in quite a few technology companies. I also have a background in film production, and really a lot of that was around project management, production coordination, and then going into the technology space, project management and product management. And really what led to success there, and really where it leads to success here, is it's all about creating and enabling really powerful communication within the teams. I would say that the great work that we do here at Zaro is wholly credited to the way our teams work and the great work that they do, right? And so it's all about really enabling communication, and I think in these times, it's all about leveraging technology to enable that communication. So, I mean, out of the many dimensions or facets of the work we do, the first thing that happened was since we have a orientation towards technology, we have an appetite for it, and we're very curious about it. We very quickly understood that in this crisis, we need to change the way we work, and we can leverage exponential technologies and the power of the internet to really to change the way we communicate and really make it for the better. And we're seeing great results. So I was just speaking with our head of operations just a few hours ago, and he was mentioning how when crisis happened, everybody had to work from home. And how do you work from home in a transportation company when you're managing the actual dispatch of drivers and making sure that the actual physical assets are in place? But it turns out that because we are forced to be distributed, we're using tools to document our information better. we're able to have communication with much faster response times. And because of that, we're seeing a great improvement in our results. So definitely these types of events are fantastic because they create these constraints. And at the same time, they force us all to be creative. But I think what's really powerful is if we're all part of a team that's really curious and creative, then these things are a natural response in some ways, right? It's very uh, easy to get into these uncertain situations, and after realizing, well, hey, we have no idea what's going on, let's actually try to find the right kind of technology and leverage that to do better.
So in the company that you work, you were talking about the whole creativity of the. So is this a culture that actually tries to empower looking for new things, innovating in different, failing fast and stuff like that? Tell us a little bit more, because it's super interesting for me to have a conversation like this. I mean, you were working at a tech startup that is using, I don't know, any given software to create another software. I mean, I'm kind of expecting innovation to be happening, but maybe in a transportation company, that's something interesting. So,
well, yes, I think that's the opportunity, right? Because we're taking a lot of my experience was really around the lean startup principles. And so for those of you who don't know, it's a book by Eric Ries, and he teaches a 3-step process, which is it's fantastic to apply to any innovative endeavor, whatever it is, right? So let me just share my screen real quick to just elucidate on that a little bit more. So these are the 3 steps we basically follow. This is the foundation of our thought process and the way we work when we innovate, which is to start by building something, we measure it, and we learn, right? And Federico, you're totally alluding to the culture you find in those innovative startups, right? Everybody does this, right? But in transportation, almost nobody does. At least from my experience working with other transportation providers or partners or other platforms. I mean, this is a very new concept that's starting to take hold, but it's not yet widely accepted. And I think that's really where the magic is, because when you start applying these principles in a space where we're just starting to discover how to address problems with them, you really see quite a lot of value being created in even small incremental changes.
So I mean, we're going a little bit off topic on this, but when you entered Zaro, did you stumble upon this already, I'm gonna call it mature culture of creativity and failing fast, or it was some sort of a part of your duties in order to break several constraints? Or
No, I want to say that there was a really great. I think I entered at the right time, because I think there was I remember when I first joined Zaro, the culture was definitely different, and then fast forward. So let me give you a brief history. I started working with them maybe about 3 years back, and we did some. Hold on a second. I'm just having something strange with my audio here.
you're probably open the YouTube, and so you're hearing yourself and myself at the same time.
No worries.
All good.
Oh, weird. I think it's on my phone. Great. Sorry about that. So basically, yeah, I think there's about 3 years back, I joined them, and there was definitely a different culture there. And I saw that there was a want to be there, but they were not quite there yet. And then basically
We're saying, we're fast forwarding a little bit on our conversation, and I want to say hi to Matias, who has been watching all of our previous conversations with extremely talented and people, and he always has something that it sort of kind of catalyze a super interesting conversation, which is how is AI actually being implemented in your industry, and what do you believe are some niches or some areas that can still be penetrated by AI?
Yes, now I understand why you fast forward. That's great. I love it. I love it. So yeah, we're actually very actively investigating AI, as well as implementing a um, few different models and concepts around that. So, how do I frame this? I guess, at the end of the day, really what is the supply chain, and what really makes it active, or what really creates what makes it work, right? And at the end of the day, I think it's really communication between people. And when you have so many different moving parts, so many variables, and such a high level of uncertainty during the
Yeah.
process, you're moving things across land, sea, air, in our case, land, right? And happens, right? So how do you keep those communication channels open, those relationships strong, and things flowing, right? It's all about maintaining that flow of communication, of relationships, of business, and of course, of value that's being generated. So with AI, I think there's a lot of opportunities and some things we're actually directly implementing right now are we actually are using AI to do instant quotation. So say our customers want to basically book a shipment somewhere, we can actually we're using AI to actually give them rates.
Are you guys already using it?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
So before that, how long did it take
of the U.S. trucking market? So so the daily volume of that, daily transactions from those markets. So we're just starting to roll it out, and our initial tests are fairly accurate. We're of course, with these past couple of weeks, it's been a little crazy with the rates being the way they are, but I think overall we're feeling very confident in it.
So just to put it into perspective, how many variables does your AI take into consideration in order to set the most probable agreeable price?
Actually pretty simple. I would say somewhere between, now off the top of my head, I want to say somewhere around 20 or so.
Nice.
So not that many. It's more about the quantity of data we have. So we have about 5 years of historical data, and then on top of that, 80% of the daily U.S. trucking market's activity. So with that, it's pretty significant.
And there's one question from our audience that they're asking: what major changes can we expect in the supply chain as people come back and quotes normal, maybe to this new normal we have been talking about? And I want to add something to that question: how are companies like Zaro are going to take advantage in these new changes that might be happening, and which technologies will you use in order to do this?
Sure. So I mean, to answer Jorge's question, basically the thing that I find most salient when we come back to normal is that we're going to have far more transparency and visibility into everything. Everything from the status of our shipments, but actually more importantly, who the people are who are helping us, right? And being able to more actively communicate. I think that's really where we're headed towards, is just instantly being able to understand and also communicate with others. And I think part of our vision and our mission is really to serve our drivers. And I think where we find ourselves taking advantage is how do we actually enable better communication with our drivers, to direct customers, to within our own organization, between drivers, in order to actually generate a more human type of culture with technology, right? And I really think that's important because as of now, personally, as consumers, a lot of us are probably using a lot of delivery services, and really the people doing that work, the drivers and the people who are bringing us everything, are really doing a great job, right? And so I think there's going to be more awareness and I think more care. And I don't know yet the specific solutions or what kind of policies or technology that's going to come into place, but I do know that there's going to be increased awareness and a need for more communication.
Yesterday, we were talking with Federico Garcia, the CEO of ISA Business Center, which it was an amazing conversation, but we were talking about that the current disruption, which is actually a market disruption, it literally checks all the boxes of a market disruption. But it's a specific kind of disruption that it's not being made by a new technology, by a company with a super breakthrough business model. It's just something that happened that it's affecting everyone, correct? So when this is all said and done, we will be seeing, or we will be on the verge of a some sort of a currently or new recently disrupted market, but with no clear winner or not disruptor, because we all hope that this will go away, or at least we will be able to contain it or find the cure of it to it.
Sure.
Uh, so Zaro has been, at least for the past 3 years, been working on implementing digital technologies and several other technologies, like a new culture of innovation and creativity all across the company. This probably sets you on a pretty nice position in order to reach for this void that disruption is leaving. Are you guys looking at this, or this is not something you have been thinking about?
This is absolutely what we are feeling every day, is, and we're feeling very optimistic about, is because I think and it's not, by the way, it's not only technology that's being disrupted, it's also our way of working. And I want to get into that a little bit later on in this conversation, but it's really, we're all very optimistic, and at the same time very curious, and we know that, yes, there's not a new technology that's coming to disrupt, but it's like, yes, there is a void, and we're doing our utmost to fill it. But we realize that the key is really to have that curiosity, that creativity, and that communication, right? And using the existing technology solutions to create solutions to those problems very rapidly, to test new ideas. So failing fast is very critical.
What kind of technologies are you talking about? Like,
Sure.
what?
Sure.
Tell me a little bit of a more hands-on kind of thing that we can all.
Yeah, specifics about, like, okay, so I guess let me start internally. So when we're managing our operations, we have our own custom-built TMS system that we've actually maintained in-house. This current version's been live for about 5 years, but since day zero, we've had our own custom-made TMS platform that manages our own shipments and drivers and trucks, and of course this platform has API connections, direct API connections to customers, so they can basically track their shipments automatically. We're starting to explore being able to actually book shipments automatically too. And
so you guys have all your trucks connected into a central data lake, and from that data lake, you guys have an API connection or for your customers to actually see where their truck is?
Somewhat, yes. We have a partner that we work with who actually provides those services and the hardware, and basically manages the GPS connectivity. So our trucks and trailers are connected, and then we of course utilize that data for all kinds of things like predictive ETAs and basically, actually, another great thing that our team did just recently, we launched it, or we're about to launch, is we're able to actually automatically authorize fuel charges for diesel. So say our trucks are running and basically they need to refuel, we'll automatically load the payment cards.
Talk about one specific use case of using geographical coordinates and geofencing in order to do something that might seem a little bit simple, such as charging drivers' debit cards for refueling their trucks. But I mean, I believe that's a pretty awesome implementation of digital technologies and the usage of data into your current operation, that something like this might have been even unthinkable in the past years. Do you have any more of this sort of use cases?
Oh, certainly, yeah. So another thing that happened very quickly is with this crisis, we wanted to better take care of our drivers and avoid physical contact. And one thing that happens is that to maintain with certain regulations, when we're doing our cross-border trade, we have to make sure that we do a security inspection as we're about to cross the border. So there's actually a physical walk around and sign off and some handoff of paperwork. And so within about, I would say, 3 weeks, we implemented a fully contactless system that basically evolved from pen and paper to completely digital. And of course, we wouldn't have been able to do it without being able to rapidly prototype. And so now, rather than drivers having to get out of the truck and talk with the security guard, they can basically just stay there. Or everything is fully connected and instantly readable. And I think a component of that actually is able to use AI vision to read certain tags and numbers on our equipment. So that way it's able to reference information. So yeah, basically, very quickly we're able to create systems that address like safety needs or health needs, right? And um, it's awesome because I think, you know, talk to me about 3 years ago, I wouldn't think it'd be possible to create an application like this in even like 4 months, right? But nowadays, with the tools we have, uh, we we can create things very quickly.
Do you use any specific software that it creates low code apps in order to
Yeah,
be tested out there?
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
mean,
So yeah, we're very. Oh, we use a lot of different things, but one of the things we do for rapid prototyping is we do use low code solutions. We've had really good results with OutSystems specifically. There's a few others that we use that we're just starting to investigate as well. Um, Another couple of providers who are fantastic are Google Cloud and also Amazon Web Services. Some of their offerings are phenomenal. They're not necessarily low code, but they are they make things a lot easier to do, right? So
so in order to understand a little bit more about how your innovation and implementation process goes, so you have
sure.
this hypothesis, and in order to test it, you create a low-code app using,
Yep.
in your case, OutSystems,
Sometimes, most of the time,
or
yeah, I would say,
something,
yeah,
or
yeah,
some tool that might be already available.
sure.
It's not created from scratch,
Hmm.
and you ship it and you put it into productive, and basically for your user to use it and see how it works.
That's right. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's amazing because these tools allow you to go from an idea into a prototype um, in a fraction of the time of traditional development, right? So,
Tell me a little bit more about your timetable and
well,
from idea into actually.
I've been playing around with this term called real-time prototyping, where basically we can sit down with the business owner and come up with an application within 1 or 2 hours in
Wow.
real time with them, right? So
And
that's the idea.
and in 2 hours they're already using something
So
like
it's
an
like the
actual
most
application
basic
that.
form, exactly, like a fully functioning web app with, you know, it's responsive, it's on their phone. They can start to see how the interactions will be. Of course, there is more time that's involved in refining and iterating on that, right? But um, uh, you know, it's very powerful when you can actually sit down with someone who has a business problem to solve and solve it with them in the moment and co-create it with them. And it does two things. One is it's very much in tune with what their needs are, right? Because they can have that, we can have that conversation and then understand how to express solution together. And
Yeah.
the second thing is it greatly increases the engagement. So that means that now that user and their team are greatly bought into using the application. So that concept of adoption is taken care of right there when we're actually building it together.
How many applications do you have currently in Zaro?
Ooh.
You're gonna have to say a couple hundreds though. You're taking
Yeah.
2 hours to ship.
No, so that's asking like how many birds do we have in a tree? So we're constantly creating new ones, and so new ones are flying in and out, right? But no, I would say definitely like our primary suite of applications, we have about like 5 or so, but then we always keep on adding small little prototype modules that are, you know, I think now in the dozens, if not hundreds. So
Nice. So
yeah.
Ricardo is asking, on a management kind of perspective, what changes do you think companies might need to do in order to be more prepared for some sort of extraordinary conditions or situations like the one we're having? So I'm gonna wait on that question a little bit. So I want to take a step back and ask you: have you been working or have knowledge about what sort of management strategies the companies are working on or have been stumbling upon for this some sort of endemic situation? And
Sure. Yeah.
because you probably do, and you might have also some sort of insight that you might be able to share with us in order to solve Ricardo's question.
Sure. Certainly. So I think to answer that question, and I've been reflecting quite a lot about this, we have to understand what has this pandemic caused. and it's caused us to become isolated, right? And so then what kind of gap has that created? And it's really, in my opinion, it's the gap of not being with each other in presence, right? And what do you lose when you have that gap? Well, I think there's quite a lot to be lost, right? The way information flows within an organization is drastically changed. And if you look at a lot of different ways of managing, I think there's if you look at your traditional way of managing with a hierarchical structure, and also this concept of command and control, or even using objective-based management, relying upon that and being in a distributed environment, I think I've seen it start to break down, and I've seen just when talking to friends and family who are in those types of organizational structures, a lot of them, there's such an imbalance of work that's happening because there's a lack of connection between the direct teams who are working. And so shifting over to what I think is really the opportunity, and this is something that we've been actually currently building, and something I'm super passionate about, is that we've actually been implementing self-managed teams within our organization. And for those of you who don't know, it's all about creating self-managed teams where inside that team they have the full capability and authority to make whatever they need to do real, right? Or to do whatever they need to do. Imagine a small micro business or several small micro businesses that exist within an organization. I actually have a kind of a graphic of how that might look, and from a technology standpoint. So let me share my screen here so I can share this with everyone. So basically, we build these teams, and our CEO actually introduces this, saying, "Look, I'm no longer in the picture. All of my authority comes to you. There are no leaders here. In fact, we're all leaders. There's nobody who's the boss. And feel free to create your own purpose, your own mission, and then go forth to serve that purpose, right?" And if we look at this from an IT standpoint, we'll have some engineers here who are specialists on specific parts of the product we're building, one or two QA resources, a agile coach to make sure that the process flows smoothly inside the team, and then a product manager who's really responsible for enabling conversation to serve our users and define product strategy. But here we really recognize that this team is autonomous and has full sovereignty within the organization. And now we kind of zoom out a little bit, and we can see here that the whole organization is comprised of these different teams. So there's not a top-down hierarchical approach, but more so we structure these teams to have as much autonomy as possible. Of course, that requires knowledge of accountability and emotional intelligence and maturity around those concepts. But what this does is this mimics nature far more than a traditional organizational structure. When we're all separated, we actually are now living in some way we're subject to a natural phenomenon, right? And we're now having to change the way our whole organization operates, and this allows teams to actually sense, act, and decide right within the team itself. If you look at a traditional form of management, if you sense a problem, then you'll have to report it up the hierarchy, decide at the top, and then come back down and make a decision. And there's quite a lot of inefficiencies there. So this is one simple example of where this helps, right? And so we've actually been on the path of formalizing our own methodology and then implementing it within our organization. I would say, it's definitely a very interesting path. We're seeing great results. We're seeing fantastic innovation and participation from everyone involved, and it's quite fulfilling, I would say. And yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
can go on. I can go on.
I know you do.
Yeah.
I know you do. So this will opens the need for top talent in your organization. I mean, you're basically letting anyone have any sort of decision right now. So having a clear culture, a clear vision, and having the best talent available for leadership, for engineers, for gonna be what makes or break your organization. So now you're a tech company. Congratulations.
Well, I think another part of this too is that we really also believe in developing talent within. So
Nice.
I think there's I think another spin to this is that we can creating the right environment to let everyone's internal genius shine. I believe everyone has some form of genius that exists, right? And it's all about um, for me personally, like how do I put myself in a place where I can give the best of myself, right? I think I know what that is. I'm always discovering new things. I'm sure others are feeling the same way, but I think really when we're thinking about self-managed teams, it's all about structuring the environment so that everyone can bring the best of themselves, right? And there's a great quote um, that a mentor of mine actually said. He said, "Leadership is really creating the space for others to arise." Right.
Nice.
So that's to me the essence of what we're doing here, and using technology to facilitate communication between these teams and to really activate their cohesion, especially in a distributed environment, is really important. So I think you saw just right now I'm using a digital whiteboard, right? So we use these quite a bit to collaborate on ideas where everyone can come in and move things around, create wireframes very quickly and sketch processes together. Another thing we do, of course, we use video chats and we use, and another thing we also have is we have integrations directly from our TMS into whatever tools our teams decide to use. That was really
So,
powerful. Oh, go ahead.
no, sure, sure. So we have
So
been talking about how digital technologies are being used by Zaro
that's right.
technologies.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Yeah,
tell me about the roadmap you're watching. I mean, I'm
sure.
sure, and I have known you for a couple of years now. I'm sure you already know what trends are gonna be happening in the next 3, 4, 6 months, years, and so on and so forth. What are you looking at? I mean, what
Sure.
are the key trends, digital trends that might be stumbling upon in transportation industry, and what opportunities for companies, for tech startups, or maybe big companies need to take?
So yeah, I think that's a great question, and really,
I mean, because we can talk about the
yeah,
autonomous machines, which is
no,
like
yeah,
the
I was about to,
super easy quick answer to that,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I want to go more into like real, almost easy to create technology.
sure, definitely. So I think, yeah, I
So
think
friends, it's not
there's,
no technology is easy to create.
yeah, no, no, I'm just trying to think of like, you know, so yeah, I think the thing that I'm very interested in, I think we're already starting to get a taste of it, is there's this concept of a digitally autonomous organization, right? So imagine an organization where the only people involved are the owners, and then the customers, right? And a lot of the repetitive functions that are just really essentially moving information around or moving things around are automated, right? So we're looking at like how do you even automate the process of getting a shipment, communicating the information of a shipment all the way to our drivers, and fully automating that process, fully automating customs paperwork, so that way there's less of a human, there's not as many human components involved. That type of stuff is actually very achievable within even the next couple of months, because a lot of companies are starting to expose APIs that actually automate a lot of these procedures, right? And I think that's really something very interesting to us. Another very interesting thing is how do you recreate communities digitally? So I think this is not so much about autonomous trucks and drivers, but more so how do you create a sense of belonging in this world where everything is highly changing, right? So there's such a high rate of change, and with all that movement, there's such a disconnect. So we're actually actively exploring platforms for creating communities within our organization and also outside. Without going into too much detail, we're really focusing on our drivers.
A couple of days ago, I know you were watching the conversation with David Tamez, the founder and CEO of All In Logistics. We were chatting about the there's some sort of data centralization of the whole supply chain in which providers, distribution companies, uh, logistics centers, all the way to the consumer.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
so we believe that, and this is something super interesting that might happen in a few months ahead. So this data, I don't know if I want to call it data lake because it's more kind of a data ocean because it's going to be centralizing data all the way from suppliers and all the actually all the supply networks, not longer a chain.
Sure.
So it does arise several questions to me on that because one is who's responsible for that data lake, who's responsible of taking care of it, of the data, of the ownership of the data. Is this going to be a government kind of thing? So what are you expecting on this?
I really see this as, for this to really work, it has to be completely participative and decentralized. I don't think that, and thank you for bringing it up because I think, a keystone for all of things that we're talking about is really standardizing the data interface between all of the different participants in the supply chain. And for that to work, really, everyone has to have ownership of that data. But how do we do that, right? What kind of technology suggests that there is shared ownership without having some central body that's governing the data, right? And the one that just comes to mind is blockchain,
Yeah.
because I think that's really, that's from the ground up is really built as a peer-to-peer decentralized method to manage information, right? So I think there's opportunity there. The question would be how to implement it in. I think the challenge would be how do you implement it in the transportation world, where
how do you get companies, even competitors, to buy into this
exactly? Yeah,
data sharing kind of thing?
That's right. So I think making things. I really think the approach of low code. I love that approach because it's so easy for anyone to come in and solve a problem, right? So I think like creating low code solutions or even no code solutions where you don't even need to code anything. Maybe there's some customization you can make and turn it on. That's really the key. And so I really see that's the role of us as a technology company to provide those types of solutions to ourselves and also the whole market, right? To make everything.
So you do see this happening in the near future?
Oh yes.
Someone's gonna take that big advantage. So there's a big opportunity there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's I think and one thing I'll also say is that there's probably going to happen in a way we won't expect. We're thinking about it in a way right now, but if it's like anything that's happened in the past 2 months, it's going to happen in a way we don't expect. So I think our job is to keep our eyes open as well as think about ways to make it easy to access and easy to use right away, right? I think it's not about getting it perfect, more so getting it usable and in place, and then constantly improving it.
This has been an amazing conversation. We always have amazing. I always have amazing conversations with you.
Yeah, you too. It's always a good time.
So please share some closing thoughts on what we have been talking about. We have been talking about for more than 40 minutes. That felt to me like 5.
Yeah. Right.
So, but what are your closing thoughts on like how digital technologies will help to reactivate the supply chain? Because that's what we're supposed to be talking about. I don't know if we've talked about it, but
sure. Yeah, it's coming back to it. I think really when we come, I think there's so many opportunities, and with transportation being very young in the technology space, it's all about experimenting and using technologies that trying out new things and having that appetite, building that appetite as an organization. That's incredibly important, right? There's a lot of tools out there which can be very quickly repurposed to be used in transportation. There's a lot of companies out there who are doing which are doing fantastic work around transportation technology, right? And I think every day it's becoming easier and easier to get AI in place in many ways. There are many tools now becoming available to greatly increase collaboration, greatly increase customer service, automate a lot of processes, and those types of things are crucial, right? And they can start very simple as very crude prototypes and very quickly evolve into a very, very highly effective system, right? And I think what's really crucial is making sure that that technology or whatever technology is chosen is really serving those who are using it, right? And always being focused on the human and technology connection, I would say. So when we talk to our drivers, we always want to make sure that they're satisfied and the technology actually acts like a force multiplier for them, more so than a tool or more so than a routine that they have to go and process, right? For us, it's all about reducing the caloric expenditure of our end users, right, or our customers.
That's amazing.
Getting out of their way, right? Just becoming a transparent window into better interactions, right? So I definitely see us heavily utilizing even simple things like video conferencing, right? So I don't know if you know about our technology called WebRTC. It's a peer-to-peer video conferencing system. Maybe there's going to be a far more decentralized way of running video through maybe specific transportation applications, or having immediate presence with a driver and say someone who's um, a on the customer service side, or yeah, there's so many places to go, I think, but it's really all about trying out new things and saying and taking those small steps at a time. Also, I think there's such a vast breadth of technology and information and new things happening, and I would say my advice, if I had to give anything to a transportation company interested in, or anyone that's supply chain interested in improving the technologies, try investigating new things and see how they might work, right? And I think that's building that internal culture of understanding or exploring new ideas. That's really where the value starts to become generated, because as new technologies become developed by others, we all start to learn how they all connect, and then yeah, I think then good things happen.
Great. Well, once again, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks so much,
for sharing all this knowledge with us. It has been an amazing conversation. Guys, for everyone there watching, tomorrow we will not be having, I know that's sad, it's a bummer for everyone, but we will not be having a conference tomorrow. We will be having a CTO panel on Friday morning. If you have not yet subscribed to our newsletter, please go to valia.io/digital summit, or just valia.io, and in the header you can click on the digital summit button, and there you can see the next scheduled and who's going to be next and everything. So guys, thank you very much for being here. Kunal, once again, thank you very much. This has been an amazing conversation, and hey guys, see you on Friday. Thanks, Kunal.
Thank you so much. Thanks.